You believe wars are won by strength, not by strategy, not by supply lines, not by the anonymous workers pouring steel in factories at 3 a.m., not by nameless logisticians balancing fuel requests against collapsing rail networks. Strength, power, raw physical dominance. That is the rule mankind has worshipped since the first warriors carved lions onto their shields. It is the rule that built empires. The rule that forged swords, cannons, dreadnoughts, and bombers. The rule whispered to generals in their sleep, build something bigger, and you will win. In 1942, Adolf Hitler revived this rule with evangelical zeal. Germany was bleeding on the Eastern Front. Millions of Soviet troops were throwing themselves into the fire. The Red Army kept coming, after defeats, after encirclements, after catastrophes. T-34 production lines ran day and night. Soviet factories dismantled, relocated, reassembled east of the Urals were spitting out tanks like they were toys. Germany needed a miracle. Something the enemy could neither match nor withstand. A weapon so devastating it would force the universe to acknowledge German supremacy. And thus was born the legend of the Panzerkampfwagen 6 Tiger. A machine engineered not as a tool of war but as an idol. A rolling altar to the myth of technological salvation. A promise to the German people that genius alone could deliver victory. When the Tiger appeared, soldiers whispered its name with reverence. Allied intelligence reported panic. Soviets cursed, prayed, or ran when they heard its engine. The Tiger did not just arrive on the battlefield. It descended like a god demanded by a failing empire. 57 tons of armor. A gun that could crack open any tank on Earth at ranges so obscene that opposing crews died before they even heard the shot. Armor that seemed impenetrable, invincible, immortal. This was the rule made manifest. Make it stronger and you will win. And Germany believed it. They believed victory could be engineered. They believed that the Tiger was the answer to every defeat, every retreat, every time Soviet infantry swarmed German trenches like a tide that would not recede. They believed the Tiger was the war. But the rule was wrong. Because war is not a duel of giants. War is not decided by the sharpest sword or the thickest armor. War is a system, a living organism made of fuel, food, mechanics, manpower, transport, bridges, spare parts, rail lines, and time. The Tiger was too heavy for the system that built it. It cracked bridges. It chewed through engines. It burned more fuel in a day than divisions needed in a week. Its tracks snapped. Its transmissions overheated. It required entire battalions of mechanics, recovery vehicles, and supply trucks. It was the perfect weapon for a war Germany could not sustain. And yet, no one dared question the myth. You do not question gods. But while Hitler worshipped the Tiger, while propaganda films turned it into a mechanical Superman, a young man on the Eastern Front would discover the truth. His name was Otto Carius, 20 years old, soft-spoken, unassuming, barely tall enough to be noticed in a tank crew photo. But history remembers him for one reason. He understood the Tiger not as a symbol, but as a burden. He learned its weaknesses through frostbitten fingers and oil-stained rags. He learned its limits on roads that collapsed beneath it. He learned its arrogance the day it stranded him in no man's land, surrounded by Soviet armor, waiting to die inside a machine the high command believed could not fail. He learned the truth the engineers dared not speak aloud. The Tiger was not built for Russia. Russia was built to destroy Tigers. Mud that swallowed tanks whole. Snow that choked engines. Distances so vast fuel trucks died trying to keep up. Railways too weak to carry it. Bridges that collapsed under its weight. Mechanics who worked until their hands bled, just to keep a single Tiger alive for another 20 kilometers. But the propaganda never mentioned the cost. It never mentioned that the Tiger was a black hole of resources. That every Tiger delivered to the front starved 5 Panzer IVs of fuel. That every Tiger maintenance crew robbed manpower from collapsing infantry divisions. That Germany was destroying itself to keep these beasts alive. Yet the myth persisted. Because myths are easier to believe than math. The German high command clung to the Tiger as if it were a lifeboat, ignoring the fact that it was dragging the entire ship underwater. In the briefing rooms of Berlin, generals pointed at maps and swore the Tiger would restore maneuver warfare. They imagined spearheads of unstoppable armor carving through Soviet lines, restoring the glory of 1940. They forgot something essential. An army that cannot move cannot win. And the Tiger struggled to move anywhere. Yet none of this mattered when the first Tiger rolled past a line of infantry on the Eastern Front. Soldiers stood taller. Morale surged. Men who had seen nothing but retreat suddenly believed again. Its engine roared like a challenge to the world. Its armor gleamed like a shield forged by gods. It was hope, forged in Krupp steel. But hope does not win wars. Fuel wins wars. Factories win wars. Maintenance wins wars. Supply lines win wars. Flexibility wins wars. Numbers win wars. The Tiger ignored all of these realities and devoured the very resources Germany needed to survive. Yet the myth lived on. Because myths only die when someone forces the world to face the truth. And that moment came for Otto Carius, not in Berlin, not in a briefing room, not in a propaganda film, but on a frozen road outside a collapsing German defensive line, where his Tiger shuddered, groaned, and died, just as Soviet tanks crested the hill. In that instant he realized, this machine will kill its enemy, but it will kill its own army first. The Tiger was not too strong, was too heavy. Too heavy for bridges. Too heavy for rail cars. Too heavy for its own engine. Too heavy for the factories that built it. Too heavy for the fuel trucks that fed it. Too heavy for the empire that worshipped it. Germany had built a miracle, but what it needed was a solution. And so begins the story the propaganda never told. The story high command buried behind medals and headlines. The story found in maintenance logs, after-action reports, diary entries, and the exhausted eyes of men who fought inside steel beasts that demanded more than a nation could give. The story of logistical suicide. The story of a wonder weapon that strangled its own army. The story of a young commander who learned in fire and frost that strength is meaningless if it cannot move. This is the truth behind the Tiger. This is the rule Germany broke. And this is the moment Otto Carius realized. The Tiger would not win the war. It would help lose it. You meet Otto Carius long before he becomes a name whispered among German tank crews and cursed in Soviet after-action reports. You meet him as he truly was. A 20-year-old boy from Zweibrücken, narrow-shouldered, quiet, polite. Someone who looked more suited to a university lecture hall than a battlefield. But war does not ask for your age. It does not ask for your dreams. It does not even ask for your permission. It simply takes. And Otto Carius is taken in 1940, swept into the Wehrmacht like hundreds of thousands of other young men. He doesn't volunteer because of ideology. He doesn't recite slogans. He doesn't burn with fanaticism. He joins because it is expected. Because his country is at war. Because duty is a weight that crushes hesitation. He begins his career not in a Tiger tank, not even in a Panzer IV, but in the small, lightly armored Panzer 38T, a Czech-designed tank Germany appropriated after annexation. The tank is nimble, quick, easy to maintain, reliable. In other words, everything the Tiger will never be. But at the time, Carius has no idea what the future holds. He does not know that fate will put him inside one of the most powerful tanks ever built. He does not know that the machine he will command will shape the legend of his life and become the burden he carries long after the war ends. For now he is a loader. Just one man inside a cramped little tank. A cog in a machine larger than anything he can comprehend. He learns the basics. Load shells. Clean the breech. Respect the recoil. Obey the commander. Keep your head down. Stay alive. But the Eastern Front is a merciless teacher, and it teaches him something far more important. Survival is mechanical. The tank you ride matters more than the medals on your chest. A tank that starts in the morning is worth more than the most heroic speech. A tank with a working engine is worth more than 10 tanks stalled in the cold. As he watches Panzer 38s and Panzer III struggle against the armor of T-34s, as he sees shells bounce off Soviet-sloped armor, as he watches friends die because their machine is weaker than the enemy's, he learns a truth he will carry forever. A tank crew lives or dies by engineering. Germany, in 1941 and 1942, is slowly realizing the same truth, but its response will be catastrophic. The engineering shock that terrified the Wehrmacht. When Operation Barbarossa begins, German tank crews are confident. They expect quick victories. They expect breakthroughs. They expect another lightning triumph like France. But the first encounters with the T-34 change everything. An 85mm shell slams into a Panzer III and goes straight through. German rounds bounce like stones off a fortress. Engines overheat. Tracks break under strain. The Eastern Front is chewing up German armor. Reports flood Berlin. Requests for upgrades. Demands for thicker armor. Panicked pleas from commanders who suddenly face an enemy tank superior in nearly every respect. And from this panic, a dream emerges. A dream of a tank so powerful it will erase Soviet numerical advantage with sheer dominance. The Tiger is conceived not out of strategy but out of fear. Fear of the T-34. Fear of the KV-1. Fear that Germany's armored superiority, the heart of Blitzkrieg, is slipping away. But the men designing the Tiger do not understand the front. They are not knee-deep in Russian mud. They are not freezing in wind chill that kills exposed skin in minutes. They are not watching engines seize at 30 below zero. They are engineers, brilliant, visionary, arrogant, and they think in absolutes. Their solution is simple. Build a tank that Soviet shells cannot penetrate. Build a gun that can destroy anything from any distance. Build a machine so perfect it will decide the war by its existence. And so they create a prototype that weighs nearly 45 tons. Hitler sees it and demands more armor, more thickness, more dominance, more awe. He pushes the design above 50 tons. Then 55. Finally 57 tons. Hitler looks at the Tiger and sees inevitability. The engineers look at the Tiger and see beauty. But the logistics officers look at the Tiger and see disaster. No one listens to the logistics officers. They never do. The man chosen by the machine. Otto Carius transfers to Schwer Panzerabteilung 502 in early 1943. The battalion is elite. Handpicked. Designed to wield the Tiger like a scalpel and a hammer simultaneously. The Tiger is not a frontline workhorse. It is not meant to be numerous. It is not meant to be expendable. It is meant to break lines. To terrify. To dominate. To smash Soviet armor concentrations before they gain momentum. In theory. But Carius discovers quickly that reality is far more complicated. He sees the Tigers lined up in a clearing, massive, imposing, their armor glinting in the low sun. His first thought is awe. His second is fear. Because standing beside a Tiger is like standing beside a locomotive that pretends to be a tank. It is enormous. It is overwhelming. It is too much. Too much steel. Too much weight. Too much maintenance. Too much responsibility. And yet he loves it. He writes later. I felt as if I had been entrusted with a king among tanks. But kings are demanding. The Tiger requires constant care. Oil changes. Track tension checks. Cooling system flushes. Lubrication at dozens of precise points. Finger-bruising work on interleaved road wheels caked in frozen mud. Each Tiger crew must be half warrior, half mechanic. Carius learns to listen to his machine the way others listen to their heartbeat. Every vibration means something. Every smell tells a story. Fuel. Coolant. Each scent is a language he must master. If he misreads a sign, his Tiger dies. If his Tiger dies, his crew dies. That is the bond between a Tiger commander and his machine. A bond written not in steel but in fear. The Eastern Front, the world of mud, fire, and distance. Operations begin near Leningrad, where marshlands swallow tanks whole. German infantry slog through knee-deep mud. Supply trucks stall. Horses collapse. The landscape itself fights on the side of the Soviets. A Panzer III can traverse this terrain. AT-34 handles it easily. The Tiger struggles. Its weight digs trenches into the earth. Its tracks churn mud into suction traps. Its engine roars in protest as it tries to free itself. The first Tiger deployment of S.PZ, ABT 502 results in a disaster. Several Tigers become bogged down. Others break final drives. One catches fire. The Soviets do not even need to destroy them. Nature does it for them. Carius observes this quietly. He does not complain. He does not question. But something inside him changes. He begins to understand that the Tiger is not simply a weapon. It is a negotiation with the environment. Every kilometer must be earned. Every turn must be calculated. Every battle must be planned around whether the machine can physically arrive. He learns that the Tiger is not a tool of maneuver warfare. It is a fortress on tracks, and fortresses are not meant to move fast. He learns above all. Russia will break anything that is not built for Russia. The first taste of battle. Carius' first real engagement in a Tiger is textbook perfection, and a dangerous illusion. He sees a column of T-34s advancing across open ground. Range, 1,800 meters. The Soviets do not yet know the Tiger's capabilities. Carius gives the order. Fire. The 88mm gun speaks. The recoil is thunder. The Soviet tank explodes before it even becomes aware it has been hit. The crew cheers. Carius feels a surge of pride, of relief, of vindication. They fire again. Another Soviet tank dies. Then another. Then another. 5 kills in minutes. The Tiger seems unstoppable. But this moment is a lie. A beautiful, dangerous lie. Because the battlefield was perfectly flat. Because visibility was perfect. Because they were on high ground with stable footing. Because they had fuel. Because they had ammunition. Because the Soviets were caught in the open. Conditions so rare they might as well be miracles. Carius realizes this later when miracles no longer come. The toll of maintenance. After the battle, while infantry celebrates and officers congratulate themselves, Carius and his crew begin the ritual. A full Tiger maintenance overhaul. 8 hours minimum. Sometimes 12. Sometimes all night. Remove mud from interleaved wheels. Check bogies. Examine torsion bars. Inspect track links for stress fractures. Tighten bolts loosened by recoil. Drain and refill fluids. Scrape frozen mud out of metal seams. Every time the Tiger fires, recoil stresses the chassis. Every kilometer creates problems. Every battle consumes the machine. Germany sees the Tiger as immortal. Carius knows it is falling apart faster than Germany can repair it. Fuel, the true master of war. The Tiger carries 540 liters of fuel internally. On good terrain that might take it 100 kilometers. On Russian terrain much less. Fuel convoys must follow the Tigers constantly. But fuel is running out. In 1943, Germany loses access to critical oil fields. Synthetic fuel production cannot keep up. Luftwaffe demands priority. Panzer divisions fight for scraps. Carius learns that fuel determines strategy, not Hitler. Fuel decides whether an attack is possible. Fuel decides whether a retreat is possible. Fuel decides whether the Tiger can live long enough to fight. He describes the fear in his crew's eyes when fuel is low. The enemy we feared most was not the Russian. It was the empty fuel tank. The railway curse. The Tiger can only be transported on reinforced rail cars, special Schienen Panzerwagen, of which Germany has very few. Even when the rail car is available, the Tiger must be partially disassembled to fit width and weight regulations. Road wheels removed. Turrets secured. Track width adjusted. It takes hours. This means Tigers cannot be redeployed quickly. They cannot respond to emergencies. They cannot be used strategically the way the High Command imagines. They are always late to the battlefield. Always arriving when the worst has already happened. Carius sees the front collapsing. By late 1943, Germany is losing everywhere. Kursk has failed. The Soviets are launching massive counteroffensives. German infantry divisions are reduced to skeletons. Anti-tank guns are running out of shells. Winter is approaching again. The Tiger is supposed to stabilize the front. Instead, the front is stabilizing the Tiger, and failing. The tank cannot move fast enough. It cannot appear where needed. It cannot support infantry properly. It cannot cross half the bridges on the map. Carius sees his battalion used ineffectively again and again. Sometimes they're held back for fear of losing them. Sometimes they're sent into terrain guaranteed to break them. Sometimes they're ordered into offensives that lack the fuel to reach their objectives. The Tiger is no longer a weapon. It is a political symbol, and symbols do not win wars. The man behind the myth. But to understand how the Tiger crippled Germany, you must understand the man inside it. Carius is not like the caricatures of German tank aces in propaganda. He does not boast. He does not worship the Nazi regime. He does not believe victory is guaranteed. He is a soldier who wants to survive. He wakes each morning with the same thought. Will my Tiger start today? He sleeps each night with the same fear. Will we have fuel tomorrow? He knows his life depends more on logistics than heroism. He respects the machine. He fears it. He depends on it. And most importantly, he listens to it. He hears the grinding before a transmission failure. He smells the overheating coolant. He feels the vibration of misaligned track tension. He reads the Tiger the way a doctor reads a pulse. This is why he becomes one of the deadliest Tiger commanders on the Eastern Front. Not because of aggression. Not because of fanaticism. Not because of skill alone. But because he knows the Tiger's limits better than anyone. He knows exactly how far he can push it. And when pushing it means death. The crew, a family bound by steel. Inside a Tiger you do not have comrades. You have brothers. Your gunner. Your loader. Your radio operator. Your driver. Your bow gunner. 5 men packed into a steel furnace. 5 men sharing every breath, every fear, every heartbeat. 5 men responsible for each other's survival. The Tiger demands unity. Every maintenance job requires cooperation. Every repair requires trust. Every shot fired depends on timing and coordination. Carius' crew becomes one of the best on the front not because of talent, but because they communicate without speaking. A glance. A raised eyebrow. A shift in stance. Inside the Tiger, silence is a language, and teamwork is life. The enemy is not always human. You think the enemy is the Soviet soldier. Sometimes it is. But more often it is the Tiger itself. The track that snaps in a frozen ditch. The engine that overheats in August sun. The fuel gauge that drops too fast. The gearbox that refuses to downshift. The cooling system that clogs with mud. The spark plugs that foul from low-grade fuel. The road wheels that freeze solid overnight. Every day is a mechanical duel. Carius realizes that the Tiger's greatest strength, its power, its armor, its gun, comes at a cost the German war machine cannot sustain. Not enough fuel. Not enough spare parts. Not enough machines to recover the Tiger when it breaks. And it breaks often. The tide of war turns. As 1943 ends and 1944 begins, Germany's situation becomes catastrophic. Soviet tank production skyrockets. Lend-Lease supplies pour into the USSR. American and British bombers hammer German factories. Fuel shortages reach crisis levels. And still, Hitler demands more Tigers. Because he believes the myth. He believes the Tiger will win the war he started. He believes strength decides victory. He believes bigger is better. He believes the rule. But Otto Carius, sitting inside a Tiger that is burning through its last liters of fuel, preparing for another Soviet onslaught, knows the truth. A weapon that cannot reach the battlefield cannot change the battlefield. And the Tiger is dying long before battle begins. The moment before disaster. This is where Act 2 ends. With Otto Carius staring across a snow-covered horizon, listening to the groaning idle of his Tiger's engine, feeling the vibrations in the hull, hearing the distant thunder of Soviet artillery, knowing the machine he commands is both the most powerful tank ever built, and the most fragile, a machine that gives him hope, and ensures his defeat. The Tiger has brought him this far. But the next battle will reveal everything, the weakness, the burden, the fatal flaw. The moment is coming. The moment where the myth meets reality. The moment where the Tiger breaks not from enemy fire, but from the weight of its own design. A shallow grave carved by the land itself, a depression of mud, snow, and frozen earth known to every soldier on the Eastern Front. A place where men die without ever seeing the enemy. A place where engines freeze before they can roar. A place where hope collapses faster than a trench wall thawing in spring. This grave has a name. Russia. And today Otto Carius drives straight into it. The alarm, 4:12 hours. Before dawn breaks, before men are awake enough to curse the cold, before the horizon separates sky from snow, the order arrives. A runner bursts through the command hut gasping. Soviet armor breakthrough, Duneberg Road, infantry collapsing. Tigers must counterattack immediately. Immediately. The most dangerous word a Tiger crew can hear. Because the Tiger is a monster with slow blood. It does not wake quickly. Its engine does not warm easily. Its tracks, frozen stiff all night, require prayer to move. But orders are orders. Carius and his crew sprint toward their machine, their iron coffin, their fortress, their burden. The Tiger sits half covered in snow, like a prehistoric beast waiting for resurrection. Frost clings to every seam. Mud is frozen solid between the interleaved wheels. The hull feels like touching the surface of a glacier. You climb inside. The cold is total. The engine that refuses to wake. The driver turns the starter. Nothing. A cough, a groan, a dying thud. The Tiger resists consciousness. The Maybach engine, designed for a 30-ton tank, struggles to convince 57 tons of steel that life is worth returning to. Again. Starter engaged. Fuel lines tremble. Electrical sparks protest. The engine roars once, then dies. A shiver runs through the crew. This could take minutes, or hours, or never. Outside, the distant thunder of artillery draws closer. Again. Starter grinding. Coolant pumps whining. Compression building. Heat struggling against ice. The engine roars to life. A deep, animalistic growl fills the hull. The Tiger lives. Today at least. The march into hell. Orders are simple. Advance 11.6 kilometers northeast. Engage Soviet spearhead. Prevent encirclement. Hold the road at all costs. Carius knows what this means. You are the fire brigade. You are the last hope. You are too valuable to lose and too necessary not to risk. The Tiger rolls out of the tree line. Its tracks crush frozen branches. Its engine fumes mix with morning fog. The snow beneath it melts from radiant heat, only to freeze again seconds later. You begin the journey. 3 Tigers in total. Carius leads. Behind him, Tigers commanded by Lieutenant Lowe and Sergeant Brandt. 16 full kilometers of enemy-dominated terrain await. The first death, 0.9 kilometers out. The column moves slowly, too slowly. The ground is half-frozen slush, thick as porridge. The Tiger's weight pushes straight through it. Every rotation of the tracks is a battle. Every meter consumed demands several in fuel. Then disaster strikes early. Brandt's Tiger sinks. Completely. The right track plunges into a deep rut carved by retreating artillery tractors earlier that night. The Tiger lists sharply. Snow collapses under it. Mud erupts around the wheels. Brandt radios. Final drive jammed, cannot move. Not even a kilometer into the mission. Carius clenches his teeth. They cannot stop. They cannot recover the tank. They cannot wait for Brandt to extricate himself. The road must be held. He gives the only order possible. Abandon recovery. Brandt stays behind with infantry. Continue. 2 Tigers remain. Already the battalion's strength is halved, not by battle but by physics. The Soviet spearhead. 8:03 hours. Through the binoculars, silhouettes appear. Not one. Not 5. Dozens. T-34s. At least 32 visible. Perhaps more behind the treeline. Infantry riding the hulls. Katyusha rockets in tow. Self-propelled guns crawling behind them. This is not a raid. This is an offensive. The kind designed to smash an entire regiment out of existence. Carius radios Battalion HQ. Contact. Heavy armor column. Request artillery. Pause. Static. Then the response. Negative. Artillery out of range. You must delay alone. Alone. 2 Tigers against the Soviet regiment. The impossible action begins. The first engagement. 1,900 meters. Carius positions his Tiger behind a slight rise, the only protection available. The loader inserts a PZ-0.39 armor-piercing round. The gunner steadies his breathing. Range, 1,900 meters. Wind light. Target, lead T-34. Carius whispers. Fire. The recoil rocks the Tiger's soul. The shell arcs like a flaming comet. Impact. The T-34 explodes instantly, turret blasted skyward, hull splitting open like a tin can. Soviet infantry scatter like sparks blown from a fire. The second Tiger fires. Another T-34 vanishes in a black bloom. But the Soviet counteraction is immediate. The column does not stop. It accelerates. Smoke shells. Suppressing fire. High explosive rounds beginning to walk toward the Tigers. And the distances shrink. The battlefield turns to chaos. Carius fires again. Range, 1,600 meters. Go. The gunner acquires a second. Go. The loader is drenched in sweat, his arms shaking as he wrestles 15-kilogram shells into the breach. The Tiger becomes a machine of murder. Fire. Load. Fire. Load. Fire. But the Soviet wave adapts. The T-34s fan out. They shift to flanking angles. They use terrain depressions to obscure their advance. And for every tank Carius destroys, 3 more emerge. This is not a duel. This is drowning. The gun overheats. After 22 rounds fired in under 9 minutes, the Tiger's gun heats to dangerous levels. The smell of hot metal fills the turret. The breech smokes. The loader burns his gloves on overheated shell casings. The gunner yells. Temperature too high. We risk jam or cook off. But Carius cannot stop. Because the Soviet line won't stop. Because if he stops, infantry dies. If he stops, the flank collapses. If he stops, the road falls and Germany loses not a battle, but the entire sector. He makes the decision commanders pray to avoid. Keep firing. The 88mm roars again. The Soviets break through the right. Low's Tiger suddenly takes a barrage. 6 T-34s rush his flank. The range is barely 900 meters, dangerously close. Carius sees the danger through his optics. He radios. Low reverse. Reverse now. But Low's engine sputters. Black smoke erupts from his exhaust. Then the dreaded words. Overheating. Power loss. Cannot maneuver. The Soviets swarm him. Carius shifts his Tiger. Rotates the turret with a screech. Acquires 1 Soviet tank on Low's flank. Fire. Go. Another emerges behind the wreck. Fire. Go. But now Low's Tiger takes a hit. A 76mm round slams into the turret ring. Not a penetration but enough to jam the traverse. Low becomes a pillbox, unable to rotate his turret at all. He is dying in slow motion. The Tiger's true limit revealed. Carius pushes his own Tiger forward to cover Low. But as he shifts gears, the Tiger groans. A deep, grinding wail shakes the hull. The transmission, the weakest part of the Tiger, is reaching failure. Carius whispers. Not now, not now. He maneuvers anyway. Because heroes aren't fearless. They are simply men forced into impossible corners. He places his Tiger between Low and the Soviet spearhead. 2 Tigers against nearly a division of tanks. The battlefield becomes thunder. A perfect shot, 1,200 meters. A Soviet Su-85 emerges from smoke. A tank killer. The deadliest enemy of the Tiger at medium range. It fires. The shell screams across the field. Impact. The Tiger rocks. A dent the size of a fist appears in the glassy plate. No penetration. But the shock numbs everyone inside. Carius does not wait. Fire heat. The 88 mm roars. The Su-85 splits open. Another threat gone. But dozens remain. The cost in ammunition. Carius checks the ammunition rack. They've burned through more than half their AP shells. Still at least 20 plus T-34s remain. The loader's arms tremble. He shouts, "We're running low." Carius doesn't respond. He can't. Commanders do not confess fear. Not in front of their crew. Not when the world is falling apart around them. The right flank collapses. Soviet infantry overrun the German grenadiers. Mortars rain down. At rifles crack. Molotov cocktails arc through the air. A group of Soviet sappers charges Low's immobilized Tiger. Carius acts without thinking. He floors the throttle. The Tiger lunges forward, crushing snow and debris. He fires the coaxial MG. Rounds spit into the infantry wave. Men fall. He fires the Hull MG. More fall. But more keep coming. The Tiger is a fortress, but it is still surrounded. The closest call. Suddenly, AT-34 emerges only 200 meters from Carius Tiger. Point blank. It fires instantly. The shell slams into the mantlet. Sparks fill the turret. The gunner is thrown sideways. The loader screams as shrapnel grazes his arm. The optics crack. Carius yells, "Target front." Fire. The gunner reacquires. Shoots. The T-34 erupts in flame. They survived. Barely. The last AP round. The battle reaches its zenith. Smoke covers the field. Black silhouettes move through the haze. The loader calls. Last AP round. Carius stares across a battlefield littered with burning Soviet armor. They have destroyed at least 27 tanks. A feat no other machine on the front could achieve. But it does not matter. Because now they are nearly out of ammunition. Low on fuel. Overheated. Damaged. Surrounded. The Soviet offensive has slowed. But not stopped. He knows what comes next. Close assault. The kind that kills tigers. The escape or the end. The radio cracks. Retreat. Retreat. Regiment reforming. Fall back to secondary line. Fall back. In a Tiger. With almost no fuel. With a failing transmission. With no ammunition left. Carius looks at his crew. He makes a choice. Live to fight another day. Reverse. Full speed. Smoke grenades, now. The Tiger floods the field with smoke. It begins the slowest, most terrifying reverse maneuver of their lives. Soviet shells chase them. Infantry sprint after them. Machine guns rake their hull. The transmission screams like metal dying. The fuel gauge hits its last line. The Tiger is seconds from stalling. When they reach the tree line, they vanish into forest shadows. Silent. Shaking. Alive. The aftermath. Hours later, engineers inspect the Tiger. The diagnosis: transmission near catastrophic failure. Final drive warped. Right track tension dangerously loose. Gun overheated to structural risk. Optics cracked. Armor dented in 3 places. Fuel nearly empty. Ammunition racks drained. In short, the Tiger won the battle. But the battle killed the Tiger. Carius writes later, "We survived because the Tiger was strong. But the Tiger died because the war was stronger." That is the truth no one wanted to admit. The moment of realization. As night falls, the Soviets withdraw temporarily to reorganize. The road remains in German hands. But at what cost? 2 Tigers used. 1 bogged. 1 crippled. 1 barely surviving. Fuel gone. Ammo gone. Mobility gone. Logistics shattered. A German division collapses for lack of men. A Soviet regiment survives for lack of resistance. And the Tiger, the miracle weapon, the invincible machine, has revealed its fatal flaw. Not in combat, but in reality. It cannot sustain victory. It can only delay defeat. This is the impossible action. The Tiger can win every duel on the battlefield and still lose the war. You believe a battlefield is where wars are won. You picture tanks clashing, artillery firing, infantry charging, and at the center of it all, the mighty tiger roaring like an iron god across the steppe. But wars are not won on the battlefield. Wars are lost in factories, on railways, in oil depots, in repair shops, in supply columns, in the trembling hands of quartermasters counting fuel barrels that do not exist. This is where the tiger truly lost the war. Not in a duel with AT-34. Not in a last stand against Soviet armor. But in 1,000 tiny failures that no camera ever recorded. Act 4 begins not with a shot fired, but with the consequences of every shot that was. The tiger's true cost. After the battle, after Otto Carius and his crew escaped the Soviet wave, after the tiger limped back into German lines half dead, the engineers gathered to assess the damage. What they discovered was not a surprise. It was a pattern. A pattern that had been repeating across the Eastern Front since the very first tiger rolled into combat. A pattern German high command refused to confront. 1. Transmission failures. Out of every 10 tigers, 6 suffered transmission issues within their first 500 kilometers of operation. 2. Final drive breakdowns. The infamous Achilles heel, too weak to support 57 tons. Nearly every tiger eventually suffered one. 3. Engine overheating. The Maybach HL230 P45, a magnificent engine, but designed for something half the tiger's weight. It was like asking a racehorse to drag a cathedral. 4. Suspension jams. Interleaved road wheels clogged with snow, frozen mud, and debris, requiring hours of labor just to clean. 5. Fuel consumption. A tiger drank fuel like a drowning man gasping for air. On the front, where supply lines stretched across thousands of kilometers, fuel mattered more than armor thickness. These were not battlefield problems. They were structural, systemic, fatal. The tiger was a masterpiece. But it was a masterpiece built for a war Germany could not afford. And Act 4 shows exactly how the tiger helped doom the Wehrmacht, not through combat defeat but through logistical collapse. The oil crisis that killed an empire. If you want to understand why Hitler lost the war, you must understand oil. Not ideology, not generals, not strategy. Germany did not have enough of it. And the Tiger tank consumed more oil in a single day than an entire infantry company. A Tiger needed 500 liters per 100 kilometers on roads. 700 to 900 liters per 100 kilometers on rough ground. Up to 1,200 liters if conditions were bad, which in Russia they always were. Now multiply that by hundreds of Tigers across all fronts. Then add Panthers. Then add trucks. Then add half-tracks. Then add Luftwaffe fuel needs. Then add the Kriegsmarine submarines. Germany's oil production and synthetic fuel plants simply could not keep up. And every day a Tiger moved, the German war effort bled dry. The Tiger was not a tank. It was a strategic hemorrhage. Railway ruin, when size became a curse. You do not think about trains when you think about tanks. But you should. Because the Tiger was so heavy, so oversized, so absurdly massive that it could not travel far by itself. Its tracks tore up roads. Its engine overheated under sustained marches. Its fuel consumption made long drives suicidal. So Tigers had to be transported by rail. That meant special widened flat cars, reinforced couplings, modified loading ramps, dedicated locomotives, entire railway sectors diverted. Germany's rail network, already strained by Allied bombing, buckled under the Tiger's weight. It was common for frontline units to have Tigers ready for battle, but stuck 200 kilometers away because the trains never arrived. And even when the trains did arrive, bridges cracked under the strain, rails warped, switches broke, schedules collapsed. The Tiger did not just fight on the battlefield. It fought the German rail system. And the rail system lost. Recovery operations, the death spiral. The Tiger's weight had another devastating consequence. It was almost impossible to recover. A knocked-out T-34 could be pulled by another T-34. A knocked-out Panzer IV could be pulled by a half-track. A knocked-out Sherman could be pulled by an M31 or another Sherman. A knocked-out Tiger? You needed 3 other Tigers. 3 Tigers. To rescue one. And Germany never had enough Tigers. So what happened? Thousands of times during the war, heavy tank battalions were forced to abandon, or destroy, their own immobile Tigers because they lacked recovery vehicles. Not destroyed by enemy fire. Destroyed by logistics. Germany's most powerful tank was lost not because it was defeated, but because it could not be retrieved. This is the cruelest irony of the Tiger's legacy. For every Tiger killed by enemy action, Nearly as many were lost to mud, breakdowns, or lack of recovery equipment. The myth of invincibility had a price. And Germany paid it with every kilometer marched, every liter burned, every track thrown. Hitler's obsession, a strategy built on fantasy. Inside Führer headquarters, Adolf Hitler clung to one belief. Superior technology will overcome Soviet numbers. He believed the Tiger was proof of German genius. He believed its thickness of armor validated his theories of war. He believed in the myth more than the reality. And because Hitler believed, the German high command obeyed. They continued allocating scarce steel, scarce fuel, scarce machinery, scarce labor to a tank that could not be mass-produced, could not be supplied, could not be maintained, and could not be replaced. Every Tiger built meant fewer Panzerkampfwagens, fewer assault guns, fewer trucks, fewer spare engines, fewer aircraft, fewer submarines. Every Tiger rolled out of the factory was a symbolic victory, but a strategic defeat. Because the war Germany needed to win was a war of supply, industry, mass, economy, logistics. And the Tiger excelled at none of these. The Tiger was a luxury Germany could not afford. But Hitler demanded more. The Soviets learned the truth. The Red Army feared the Tiger at first. Then they learned its truth. The Tiger could not be everywhere. The Tiger could not move fast. The Tiger could not hold the front alone. So Soviet doctrine changed. Avoid it. Overrun the infantry instead. Attack its supply lines. Cut its fuel. Wait for it to break down. A Tiger without fuel is a bunker. A Tiger without parts is a tomb. A Tiger without mobility is a steel coffin. The Soviets did not need to kill every Tiger. They only needed to kill its ecosystem. And they did. The numbers that decided the war. By 1944, the truth was irrefutable. Germany produced 1,347 Tiger I tanks, 492 Tiger II tanks. Total, 1,839 heavy Tigers. The Soviets produced 57,000 plus T-34S, 22,000 plus T-34-85S, 6,000 plus KV and IS heavy tanks. Total, 85,000 plus tanks. No Tiger, no matter how invincible in one-on-one combat, could overcome this disparity. The Tiger was a duelist. The Eastern Front was a flood. The tactical myth versus strategic reality. Yes, the Tiger dominated tactically. Yes, it killed tanks at ranges no Allied machine could match. Yes, in skilled hands like Otto Carius, a Tiger could destroy dozens of enemies in a single engagement. But war is not a sniper duel. War is production. War is replacement. War is roads, fuel depots, train yards, factories, spare parts, manpower. War is attrition. And strategically, the Tiger accelerated Germany's defeat because it consumed disproportionate resources. It forced high-value supply lines to overstretch. It demanded special maintenance capabilities. It immobilized entire repair battalions. It could not be mass-produced. It could not be replaced after loss. It drained fuel desperately needed elsewhere. It slowed mobile operations. It diverted engineers from more efficient weapon systems. The Tiger was powerful enough to inspire Hitler's delusions, and heavy enough to drag an entire army toward ruin. The aftermath of the Dunneberg action. News of Carius' impossible stand spreads quickly. He is celebrated, decorated, admired. But inside high command meetings, the Tiger's true performance is buried in euphemism. Limited mobility due to terrain. Fuel shortages impacted operational tempo. Transmission issues require review. Unexpected losses in recovery operations. No one says the truth aloud. The Tiger is unsustainable. Engineers know. Mechanics know. Tank crews know. Logisticians know. But Hitler does not know. Or refuses to know. And so the war drags on. With fewer tanks, fewer men, fewer resources, fewer options. Until the Eastern Front snaps in half. The final irony. The Tiger was designed to break Soviet armor. But in the end, the Tiger helped break Germany instead. Not through failure. Through success. Because every time a Tiger destroyed 20 Soviet tanks, Hitler believed the weapon was working. He believed the Tiger justified the cost. He believed in a fantasy. And fantasy is the most expensive mistake in war. The creeping collapse. By late 1944, the ripple effects of the Tiger were undeniable. High-level consequences. German divisions lacked transport vehicles. Infantry marched dozens of kilometers because trucks went to Tiger units. Repair battalions were exhausted. Factories lagged behind demand. Oil stocks dwindled to crisis level. Army Group Center collapsed. Operation Bagration annihilated the Eastern Front. On the ground, Tigers were abandoned in forests. Tigers were blown up to prevent capture. Tigers were stranded without fuel. Tigers were cannibalized for parts. Tigers burned as fireballs under Soviet rocket bombardment. The superweapon had become a super burden. The moment history turned. In January 1945, a report landed on Hitler's desk. A secret assessment by General Heinz Guderian, creator of Blitzkrieg. He warned, "Heavy tanks have crippled mobility. Fuel shortages render operations impossible. Panzer forces cannot maneuver. Logistics have collapsed." Hitler ignored it. He ordered more Tigers. He ordered heavier tanks. He ordered the Maus, a 188-ton monster that would have consumed an entire village's worth of fuel to move a single kilometer. By the time the Allies reached Berlin, the last Tiger tanks burned on the approaches to the city they were meant to defend. Against thousands. Against inevitability. Against reality itself. The ripple effect made clear. The Tiger was a masterpiece of engineering. But engineering does not win wars. Logistics win wars. Mass production wins wars. Supply chains win wars. And the Tiger tank, the icon of German armored might, proved that even the strongest weapon becomes a liability when the nation wielding it is too weak to support it. The Tiger's legacy is not the battles it won. The legacy is the war it helped lose. You stand now at the end of a story that was never truly about steel, armor thickness, or the caliber of a gun. It was always about consequences. And consequences outlive the men who caused them. The Tiger tank is long gone. Its factories silent. Its assembly lines dismantled. Its designers buried. Its generals defeated. Its empire shattered. But its legacy, its true legacy, still echoes through history. And it begins not in a museum or a battlefield, but in the quiet life of one man who survived it. Otto Carius, the man who outlived his machine. After the war, Otto Carius returned to a Germany that no longer believed in legends. He opened a pharmacy. A pharmacy. The tank commander who once roared across the Eastern Front in a 57-ton iron monster now spent his days dispensing medicine, labeling bottles, offering quiet advice to elderly patients and children with fevers. He named his pharmacy Tiger Apathique. Not as a boast. Not as a symbol of pride. But as a reminder. A reminder of what he had survived. A reminder of what he had lost. A reminder of the truth that never made it into propaganda reels. Carius did not worship the Tiger. He respected it. But he also understood it. He knew its limits. He saw its flaws. He watched friends die trying to keep it alive. He dragged its broken carcass across fields soaked in oil and blood. He felt, in his bones, the weight of its myth and the cost of its reality. And for the rest of his life he tried to tell the world a simple truth. A tank is not a hero. A tank is only a tool. And the men inside it are the ones who pay the price. The legacy of myth and memory. History remembers the Tiger tank with awe. Documentaries showcase it. Video games glorify it. Military enthusiasts marvel at its engineering. Visitors stand before surviving Tigers in museums, Saumur, Bovington, Kubinka, and whisper, "Look at it. It's beautiful." They admire its lines, its armor, its massive gun, the way it dominated the battlefield. But admiration is not understanding. Because what you do not see is this. For every Tiger that destroyed 20 Soviet tanks, Germany lost 200 it could never replace. For every kilometer the Tiger advanced, its fuel convoy struggled 50 kilometers behind. For every Tiger that survived a battle, 3 Tigers died in ditches, bogs, and forests because they could not be recovered. The Tiger did not just fight the enemy. It fought Germany itself. A war of weight. A war of supply. A war of mechanical limits. A war Germany lost long before the Tiger ever fired its first shot. The lesson modern armies learned. The Tiger's true legacy is found not in the stories of those who ran from it, but in the doctrine of every modern military on Earth. Today, when armies design a tank, they ask questions the Tiger forced upon them. How many can we produce, not just design? How easily can we repair it? Can it be transported across bridges in wartime? How much fuel does it burn? Can supply chains support it? Is it reliable when stressed, not just when tested? Does its cost outweigh its value? The armies that forgot these lessons in later wars, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Ukraine, paid for it in blood and broken machines. Because the Tiger proved a fundamental, universal rule of warfare. A weapon that cannot be supplied becomes a monument to failure. A weapon that cannot be replaced becomes a liability. A weapon that demands too much ends up consuming the army that wields it. The Tiger taught NATO. The Tiger taught the Warsaw Pact. The Tiger taught every military planner who ever stared at a blueprint and imagined a perfect machine. Perfection is a trap. Power is a burden. Engineering brilliance is meaningless without logistics. This is the Tiger's legacy. The ghost of a superweapon. Today, only a handful of Tigers remain intact. They sit in museums behind thick glass and steel gates. Visitors walk past them slowly, studying the welds, the rivets, the massive wheels interlocked like frozen gears of fate. They imagine what it must have sounded like when that 88mm gun fired. When its engine growled. When it charged through forests and villages like a metal giant awakened from myth. But the Tiger is silent now. Its engine will never roar again in battle. Its treads will never crush a road under wartime weight. Its gun will never strike terror across a battlefield. And yet the silence is not peaceful. If you listen closely, the Tiger whispers a warning. Do not build a weapon you cannot sustain. Do not chase miracles. Do not sacrifice strategy for spectacle. Because in war, the loudest machines often leave behind the quietest graves. The men who fought in them. The Tiger was a machine. But the men were not. They were sons, brothers, fathers, mechanics, farmers, students. Some believed in Hitler. Some did not. Some fought because they wanted to. Some fought because they had no choice. Most fought because the alternative was death. And the Tiger, this monstrous, magnificent machine, took all of them deeper into a war they could not win. Many died inside it. Many burned inside it. Many froze beside it when it broke down. Many abandoned it only to be captured hours later. Many carried memories of it until their final breath. And history rarely remembers their names. But they mattered. Because they are the human story behind the myth. The final days of the Tiger. As Berlin fell in 1945, the last Tigers fought until they had no fuel, no ammunition, no spare parts, no hope. Some were destroyed by their own crews. Some were abandoned under the shadow of Soviet artillery. Some were captured, towed, studied, dismantled. Some simply broke down and stayed exactly where they died. A few stand today in the exact place they fell, rusting monuments to a war that devoured everything. Not symbols of German power. Symbols of German failure. Symbols of the moment when ambition exceeded capacity, when fantasy strangled reason, when engineering brilliance blinded a nation to the truth. War is not won by superweapons. War is won by systems. War is won by supply chains. War is won by quantity, efficiency, and endurance. Germany built the greatest tank of World War II. And it helped them lose the greatest war in human history. The legacy in the modern world. Today, military historians debate. Was the Tiger worth it? Was it a miracle? Was it a mistake? Was it the best? Was it the worst? Was it a triumph of engineering? Or a catastrophe of logistics? The answer is simple. It was all of these things. And that is why it is remembered. The Tiger tank is a contradiction. A weapon too powerful for its own army, too advanced for its own factories, too heavy for its own roads, too fuel-hungry for its own depots, too scarce to matter, too legendary to forget. That is its legacy. Not the kills it achieved, not the fear it inspired, not the battles it won, but the lessons it forced upon the world. Lessons written in oil-soaked mud. Lessons carved into frozen steel. Lessons purchased with the lives of thousands. Lessons still relevant today. The final word of Otto Carius. Near the end of his life, Otto Carius said something few expected from a man celebrated as a tank ace. War is not adventure. War is not glory. War is not heroism. War is misery. War is loss. War is work. War is mud. And maintenance. He knew what the Tiger truly was. A machine that did what it was designed to do. A machine that demanded everything. A machine Germany could not sustain. A machine that became a myth. A machine that became a warning. And so, when Otto Carius died in 2015 at the age of 92, his funeral was simple. No military parade. No Tiger tank at his graveside. No medals pinned to a uniform. Just silence. And in that silence, the legacy of the Tiger tank, and the men who served inside it, finally came to rest. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this piece of history is worth remembering. We're dedicated to rescuing forgotten military stories from the shadows of war. If you want to join us on that mission, subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your country and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that Otto Carius, his crew, And the thousands who lived and died inside the Tigers of Schwer Panzerabteilung 502 do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered.